Did you know that Allen Iverson lost a $4.5 million mansion in Atlanta over a debt that didn't even reach $1 million? Or that the man who once traveled with a 50-person entourage and collected luxury cars had his bank account frozen by justice because he couldn't pay a jewelry bill? But this isn't just a story of bankruptcy, it's a story of resilience. Of a man who embodied the soul of the streets and reached the top of the NBA, only to fall and, against all odds, rise again as an immortal legend. In this video, we'll dive into far more than walls and gardens. We'll enter the soul of an Atlanta mansion that represents both the apex and the abyss of Allen Iverson, and understand how one of the greatest icons in NBA history lost himself in luxury and found himself again in silent humility. Get ready to discover what few know, the true story behind the doors of Iverson's most emblematic mansion. But first, if you love stories that blend basketball, overcoming, and legacy, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell, because this journey is going to move you. The dream begins long before the mansion, before the gilded gates, before the luxury cars and infinity pools. There was a boy in Hampton, Virginia, who barely knew if he'd have anywhere to sleep the next night. Allen Iverson was born into a world where the word future seemed more myth than reality. Raised by a teenage mother, Ann Iverson, in a neighborhood where violence was as common as rain, Allen grew surrounded by darkness, abandonment, and crime. His father, absent, his stepfather, arrested before his eyes for drug trafficking. By age 13, Bubba Chuck, as he was called, already knew more pain than many would in a lifetime. Yet there, amid rough streets and broken playgrounds, a light shone, a talent so rare it seemed unjust to be hidden. Iverson wasn't just good at basketball. He was a phenomenon in two sports, an elite quarterback in football and a prodigious point guard in basketball. His style, fast, aggressive, merciless. His mindset, survivor. At Bethel High School, he didn't just lead teams, he carried them on his back to state championships. And yet, just when the world seemed to open up for him, everything almost ended. At 17, Iverson was arrested, accused of assaulting a woman in a fight at a bowling alley. The media pounced. The court sentenced him to 15 years in prison. 15 years for a young black man with no prior record, no defense, and no structure. To many, that was the end. But then, the improbable happened. After national pressure and protests echoed across Virginia, Governor Douglas Wilder granted clemency. And waiting for Iverson at his release was a man who would change his life, John Thompson, the legendary Georgetown coach. Thompson looked at Iverson and said something he'd never forget. "You're not just a player, you're a symbol, and I'll give you one chance. But this is the last." At Georgetown, Iverson became a storm. His crossovers broke ankles. His gaze burned like fire. His style was everything the NCAA couldn't handle, and everything youth aspired to be. 2 years later, he entered the NBA draft, and the impossible happened. In 1996, Allen Iverson was selected as the first overall pick of the NBA draft by the Philadelphia 76ers. Standing just 1.83 mm, he became the shortest player ever picked first. That night, he looked at his mother and whispered, "One day I'll give you a mansion," one of those you only see in movies. And that was when the dream of the Atlanta mansion was born, not just as a dwelling, but as a living proof that he had won. That the boy from a prison cell, the fatherless child, the doubted athlete, had reached the top. 25 minutes from downtown Atlanta, tucked between quiet streets and private woodlands, stood a house that didn't just stand out, it made a statement. It was Allen Iverson's mansion, a property valued at $4.5 million, built to reflect every inch of the meteoric rise of a boy who defied the impossible. This was not a mere house. It was a living sculpture, crafted from Western red cedar, Tennessee bluestone, and industrial zinc, with contemporary design and details that screamed power and audacity. Once you passed the gates, A curved driveway led to an imposing facade. The first thing that struck you was the Italian Bontempi kitchen, stone countertops, recessed lighting, custom cabinetry, a space built not just for meals, but for impression. Beyond that, floor-to-ceiling fireplaces warmed rooms with modern furnishings and clean lines, where Iverson hosted rappers, sports stars, childhood friends, and an entourage sometimes exceeding 40 people. This mansion was more than home. It was a stage. On weekends, the house transformed. The heated saltwater pool reflected backstage lights, while champagne popped to the beat of hip-hop. A gourmet outdoor kitchen, party restrooms, and a rare wine cellar awaited his regular guests. There was no silence in that mansion. It was the living portrait of a man who wanted to live everything, intensely, without breaks, as if tomorrow was a detail. And upstairs, a private sanctuary, the king's refuge. The master suite unfolded like its own world, private sitting room, personal fireplace, spa bath carved to custom specs, and balconies catching Georgia sunlight. 2 additional ensuite bedrooms completed the floor, one for his children, one for close guests. Everything designed for comfort and status. But something started to shift. Behind those luxurious walls, checks started to bounce. The cash flow was massive, but the spending was even higher. That mansion, once a symbol of conquest, began to weigh him down. Maintenance costs, bills, the salaries of his entourage, cars coming in and out in a parade of wealth. Nothing was sustainable. Then, in 2017, the final blow struck. Iverson lost the mansion. It was auctioned off for just $725,000, a value that didn't reflect even a fraction of what the place represented. What had once been laughter and ostentation turned to silence and emptiness. The pool quieted, the balconies became shadows, and the door that once welcomed hip-hop royalty closed forever. Allen Iverson didn't just lose a mansion in Atlanta. He lost a symbol of victory, a piece of his ego, a part of his soul. That $4.5 million home, built as a monument to his success, was sold for pennies on the dollar. The mortgage defaulted. He owed $1.2 million to the bank and couldn't pay. How could this happen? The answer lies in years of excess, unbridled loyalty, and a dangerous relationship with money. During his career, Iverson amassed over $200 million in salaries and endorsements. Reebok alone, his main sponsor, secured a lifetime deal of $50 million with $32 million in a trust locked until he turned 55. And yet, in 2012, a Georgian judge froze his bank account. Iverson filed for bankruptcy. He couldn't pay a $900,000 jewelry debt. Documents revealed he was spending around $360,000 per month, while his income had already dropped to just $62,000. Out of that, $125,000 went straight to creditors. The rest, devoured by clothing, parties, restaurants, gifts, and people. Many people. Iverson was generous, but his generosity became a burden. He often traveled with entourages of 40 to 50 people, covering their flights, lodging, meals, and even vices. Friends, cousins, acquaintances, all part of his inner circle. He bought cars, gave money, paid off debts for others. It wasn't about showing off. It was loyalty. As Iverson himself said later, "I thought love never ended. That's why I never imagined money could." That romantic view made him vulnerable. And when his career ended, the faucets ran dry. But the spending didn't stop. Iverson's fall wasn't just financial. It was humiliating. A man once celebrated in sold-out arenas with 20,000 fans was now making headlines as a symbol of bankruptcy and downfall. He lost homes, cars, contracts. He lost his marriage. He lost friends. He lost his peace. But the Atlanta mansion was the most visible symbol of that fall. It was as if the world was saying, "You made it to the top, but forgot to build the ground beneath you." And in the silence of the cold, empty walls of that house, the echo of his journey rang louder than ever. The silent redemption, After losing everything, Allen Iverson stopped trying to impress the world with flashy cars, mansions, or wild parties. He disappeared from the spotlight for a while. The headlines about debts and bankruptcy faded into silence, and behind that silence, a deep transformation was taking place. Iverson's salvation came from an unexpected place: corporate loyalty. His lifetime contract with Reebok had a secret clause. The company had placed $32 million in a trust fund that Iverson could only access when he turned 55 years old. Until then, he couldn't touch a cent of it. And, ironically, that saved him from himself. As his finances crumbled, that fund worked like an invisible safety net. It didn't fix everything right away, but it ensured that one day he'd be able to breathe again. Over the years, Iverson pulled away from the spotlight, the arenas, and the interviews. He stopped chasing fame. He started appearing at NBA events as a mentor, not as a star. And his words, they moved people. Young players who saw him as a god heard him offer advice that sounded more like warnings. Protect your money, choose your friends wisely, value peace. And at the same time, his image started to be restored. In 2016, Allen Iverson was inducted into the NBA Hall of Fame. During his speech, he cried. He talked about his mother, about John Thompson, about Hampton, about the Philly fans. And he even thanked the haters because, as he said, "You made me stronger." In 2024, the city of Philadelphia unveiled a statue in his honor, and the city where he was born in Virginia renamed a street after him. The man who almost lost everything was now immortalized. Far from the extravagance of Atlanta, Iverson still owns a modest home in Philadelphia. A simple mansion with worn wooden floors, big trees in the yard, and windows that let the sunlight in. It doesn't have the flash of the past, but it has something Iverson learned to truly value over time: silence, peace, family. And in this new setting, no marble pools, no extravagant wine cellars, he found something that no mansion ever gave him: a new beginning. The Atlanta mansion fell, the money vanished, the cars were sold. But Allen Iverson, he's still standing. Because in the end, true greatness isn't about the millions you earn, the homes you buy, or how many people surround you at parties. True greatness is about who you remain when all of that disappears. From breaking ankles to breaking barriers. Iverson wasn't just a player. He was a symbol of freedom, rebellion, and identity. He faced giants at just 6 feet tall. He faced judges, prejudice, media pressure, and his own mistakes. And still, he changed the game. He was the first to bring braids, tattoos, and the soul of hip-hop into the NBA, and for that, he paid a price. But for that same reason, he also inspired millions. The house in Atlanta was a masterpiece, but it was built on a time of excess and illusions. And when it all came crashing down, what was left? The respect of the world, the love of his children, and a life-size statue standing proudly in front of the 76ers training facility. Because Allen Iverson's true legacy was never the mansion, it was the story. And now, that story belongs to the world. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Iverson's downfall was the price of loyalty, or just the cost of a life without limits? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear from you. And if this story moved you, like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell. Because where there's discipline, courage, and faith, a legend is always born. In the next video, we'll dive into the story of another NBA star who had it all and lost almost everything, the mansion of Latrell Sprewell, the man who turned down $21 million and ended with nothing. You won't want to miss it.